Kendra Ruczak from CGW. I'm really excited to be here at View Conference 2024 with animation director Hal Hickel. Thank you so much for being here today, Hal.
Thanks for having me.
Really excited to talk about your career and some projects that you've worked on.
Awesome.
If we could just jump right in and talk about how you launched your career. And I know you did some early stop motion work.
Yeah, I started out, well, my first love actually was motion graphics stuff. I'd fallen in love with like the Stargate sequence in 2001 and some of the work that Robert Abel and Associates was doing in LA at the time with motion graphics and streak photography. So I went to CalArts, to the experimental animation program. And then when I left there, I went back up to Portland, where I was from, worked in a little shop there doing motion graphic stuff, the pre-digital version of that, with a camera on a rails pointing down at an artwork bed, and you would shoot multiple passes of backlit artwork. Anyways. But there was a little animation studio in Portland across town called Wilvitten Studios that was doing clay animation. And they had gotten this contract to do these commercials for the California Raisins, which became this big, weird cultural blip in the mid-'80s. And so they were blowing up. They were expanding and hiring people. And I had a friend that was working there. And he knew that I had done stop motion as a kid. So he said, hey, you used to do that. You should come over here. We're doing national work, and it pays better. And it's a lot more interesting. So that got me focused back on character animation. So I was there for about 6.5 years. A lot changed in the industry. Then Jurassic Park came out, et cetera. And I was really trying to figure out how to make the leap from stop motion to CG. And just through a completely lucky break, just through somebody who knew somebody at Pixar, I found out that they need an animator. They were behind on Toy Story. They need an animator. So I sent my reel down there. Got hired at Pixar, worked on Toy Story. That was my first foray in CG. But I really wanted to do the visual effects thing more than the feature animation thing. So after Toy Story wrapped, and way before Bugs Life started up, I sent my reel over to ILM, which was just across the bay, and got hired there to animate on Lost World, the Jurassic Park sequel. And I've been there for 28 years, still there.
Amazing. So many wonderful projects since you've joined ILM.
Yeah.
If there's any that you'd like to mention that were especially challenging or memorable.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films were huge for me in terms of my growth as an animation supervisor and what the challenges were and the rewards. Rango was a big project for both for ILM and for me personally. Pacific Rim, Rogue One, these were all big projects, formative projects for me. I learned a lot on each of them. Iron Man, Jon Favreau, and John and I have now worked together on all the seasons of The Mandalorian, and we're now making Mandalorian and Grogu, the feature Mandalorian film, working on that right now, and so that's been a great relationship. And the first film where I moved from animator to being animation supervisor, which was AI, Artificial Intelligence, which is a Steven Spielberg film. And that was huge for me because it was Spielberg. It was my first gig as a supervisor, which was a whole other set of skills. I had learned a lot from Rob Coleman, who's here this week speaking. He was the animation director on the 3 prequel films, Star Wars prequel films, which I had worked on as an animator. I learned a lot from Rob about being a soup. But that was my first show. And it had 2 visual effects supervisors, Dennis Murin and Scott Farrar, who are legends in our business and, demigods. And so I couldn't have had 2 better mentors for all the new stuff I was learning, for just how to be on set, on a movie set. Because prior to that, you're animating back at the visual effects company. You're not going to set. Now, as a supervisor, I was on set whenever they were shooting scenes that we were going to be putting our creatures into. And there's a lot to learn about being on set life, and how to be useful but not be in the way, and when it's good to bother the director with a question and when to kind of keep quiet and stand aside and just listen and not talk, which is most of the time actually. Anyways, so I think those projects are the ones that really stick out for me. There have been so many. I've been so lucky. I've worked with a lot of great directors. I didn't mention Gareth Edwards. He's awesome. I've been super. I had to work with George on Attack of the Clones, and so that was like a dream come true for me. And
Well, I know you're here at the View Conference talking about Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that project and how you brought Davy Jones to life.
Yeah, Davy is a character I just love, and we had finished doing Pirates 1, and which was the main task for me on that were the skeleton pirates, these cursed pirates who become skeletons when they appear in the moonlight. And we'd gotten through that, and we'd learned a lot about sort of doing realistic human CG characters in a live action environment, and how to combine the CG characters with the live action, and what worked and didn't work. And we learned a lot. So then Gore came to John Knoll and I, at some point after Pirates 1, but before Pirates 2 was started yet. And he said, I want to do a character who's kind of like my Gollum. Meaning, what he meant by that was a key hero character with big acting moments, but that needs to be CG. And Davy definitely needed to be CG. It was unlikely to be able to do that, his beard and everything, with animatronics or makeup. So we got to thinking about, well, what didn't work on Pirates 1, or what would we like to improve about the process of putting together a CG character with a live action character in a scene. And so that spawned a whole project of doing effectively motion capture, but on set. And that was one of the big breakthroughs for us at ILM in terms of doing that kind of work. So now, instead of shooting Johnny talking to just nothing, or a tennis ball for eyeline, and then motion capturing Bill Nighy at some later stage on a motion capture stage, those actors could face each other on set as they should and react to each other and be in the moment, but we could still extract Bill's motion and apply it to Davy Jones and put him in there, and that was a big breakthrough for us. And one of the things that was challenging about the character, the tentacle beard, was the other really big headache on the show.
It's incredible the amount of work that went into that. I've seen the demonstration earlier with all the very specific articulated movements. And were there any other challenges from that film that really stood out?
Oh, it was a huge film. We had Davy and his whole crew, so we had tons of crew members that were all CG, including a character named Wyvern, who has a special little dialogue moment in the film that was really tough to get right, and really not as tough as Davy, but second after that in terms of just the difficulty of really getting the character right. Partly because his face was still very human. It wasn't changed a lot from his condition as a member of the crew. But we had a kraken, this big squid, massive squid thing that breaks ships in half, and two different big sequences with the kraken. Well, three actually, including the end when Jack gets swallowed up by the kraken, and then tons of other odd. Jack pole vaults over this chasm and then falls into it, and there's this whole crazy Rube Goldberg thing where the pole that he's tied to gets wedged in the thing and he unravels, and then a bunch of other stuff. So that was a lot of digital stunt stuff, and there were just tons of things like that. But Davy and his crew and the kraken were the two biggest challenges for sure.
Amazing. Do you have any advice for people interested in animation visual effects or just starting out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I say often, because I really believe it, is don't wait to get invited to the party. Like, there are people who think that they can't get started until they get that first job, or they get that first break, or whatever it is, or they might have some idea for a movie, but they're like, yeah, but I don't have a good camera, I just have my iPhone. Shoot the film with your iPhone. Even if it becomes like a rough version of the film, and then later you'll make it for real when you have more money and more equipment and stuff. But shoot it with your phone. You'll learn things. And doing is almost the only way to learn. And I want to caveat that I think art schools are fantastic. I went to Cal Arts, and I think if you have the means and the ability and the opportunity, do it, because for one thing, you're put in a space where you're around a bunch of like-minded people, and there's just no substitute for that. It's wonderful. But visual effects is a great industry because people can come at it from tons of different directions. And we live in a world now where there's tutorials and all kinds of things online that didn't exist when I was young. So people don't really have an excuse for not just getting on with it and doing it. And if you have a computer that can run Blender, Blender's free. Like if you want to be an animator, get Blender and start animating. If you whatever reason your computer's not powerful enough, maybe you don't have a computer, because honestly, I'm talking from a place of privilege, but there are very likely people who are just in a space where they don't have access to that yet or don't have ready access to it. Then write down your ideas, start writing your ideas, draw if that is something you feel like you're visual and that's maybe part of what your goal is down the road. Draw and take art classes if they're available to you. But there's always something you can be doing to nudge yourself closer to your goal. And part of the reason for doing that is to build up skills so that whether it's an accident, whether it's lucky, or whether it's because you've been networking like crazy and you met the right person, for whatever reason, when that first opportunity comes along, you'll be prepared to take advantage of it. You'll have something to offer because you've been working on stuff in the meantime. So yeah, don't wait to be invited to the party. Just get on with it. Make your own party. Just, until you finally do have the opportunity to work at a company or whatever.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me
You
today.
bet.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kendra.
And check out the rest of our content from View Conference 2024.